What's up guys, Paramoto here. Today, I want to bring you the ultimate beginner bike buyer's guide. Let's get to it. So guys, I've been getting this question over and over about what makes a good beginner bike, because I'm telling people that a Panigale 959 is not a good beginner bike, but then they pose the question, well Paramoto, what is a good beginner bike? The biggest things that make a good beginner bike is cost, user friendliness, and the inspiring you to ride. I think inspiring you to ride is the biggest thing, and there's a few elements to that as well. So I tell people, don't buy a Panigale 959 as your first bike. I tell people that, and you know what, it kind of irks some people. They're like, well fuck man, I kind of really wanted a 959. And I don't blame you guys. I don't blame you guys one bit. Not even a little bit, not even at all. So what inspires people to ride is going to be more or less the way their bike looks, the way their bike sounds, and the user friendliness of said motorcycle. So you don't want to get a 959 or a ZX6R as your first bike, because those bikes are not beginner bikes. They're not set up to be beginner bikes. They're not really user friendly because it takes skill to ride them. I think that's one of the biggest things about beginner bikes, is that if it takes skill to ride them, it's probably not a beginner bike. And I guess it takes skill to ride every motorcycle. So, but when it takes a lot of skill, that's the thing. You know, when it comes down to riding a Panigale 959, it takes skill to ride it because this bike is jerky. You can't touch the ground on it. Like it's hard to ride because of these things, and you have to be used to that kind of stuff. You have to be able to know how to deal with that. Your beginner bike needs to inspire you to ride, and it needs to be user friendly. So we'll break this down into groups. User friendliness. How about we talk about user friendliness first? So there are things, user friendliness, that I do need to talk about, which I've already stated. Your bike needs to probably be a little bit on the tame side. You don't want this bike where it's like, you know, that's like barely any throttle, just, and it throws you back if you're not expecting it. If you're doing things that a beginner rider would do, like not paying attention, you know, not quite being, you know, 100%, you know, aware of its surroundings and stuff. You don't need to be able to whiskey throttle your motorcycle into a tree. Another thing your bike needs to do to make it user friendly is your bike needs to be comfortable. You need to be able to touch the ground. You need probably straight bars. You don't need clip-ons that, you know, put you in the super racy position. You know, you don't need, you know, a super aggressive seating position. You don't need any of that. You need a bike that is literally, you can sit on it, feel comfortable, and feel encouraged to ride, okay? Another thing to think about when it comes down to user friendliness is, this is a little bit technical, the type of engine that you buy. So there are different types of engines that put out different power aspects. Like they have different power characteristics, right? So I would say I would buy a bike, if I was going to do a new bike, I would buy a single or a parallel twin. So like an SV650 if you're more experienced, or like a Ninja 400 or a Ninja 650. All right, those bikes are fantastic beginner bikes because they don't thrust off the line like a bike like this would. They don't just absolutely destroy you if you twist the throttle. It's a linear power delivery that doesn't spike at the top like a 600. That doesn't shoot off the line like a fucking parallel or like a V-twin, right? So a parallel twin is something to look for when you're getting a bike. And your bikes like your 650s and your 400s and your 300s, those bikes will have parallel twins that'll give you a good linear, comfortable power delivery the entire time. Another big thing to think about is cost. A lot, $3,000 to $5,000 for your motorcycle, okay? This could be a new motorcycle or it could be a used one. I highly recommend getting a used motorcycle as your first bike. Your first bike is most likely going to be dropped. It's most likely going to get dinged and damaged and stuff like that as you learn to ride. And if you get a used bike, you're going to be less likely to really feel bad about it, to be honest with you. You're going to be less likely to really care that you dropped it. You know, like, yeah, it's an embarrassing thing to drop a motorcycle. It is. It happens to people, but, you know, honestly, when it comes down to it, if you drop a used bike, it's much less of a problem than if you drop a $16,000 Panigale 959. That motorcycle, if you spend $3,000 to $5,000 on it, will have a resale value. It will. You'll be able to resell it for probably around the same-ish price if you spend a year or so and grow out of it. You know, that's what I would generally recommend you to really allot for yourself, is that I'm going to spend about a year riding this bike, and then I'm going to get sick of it. So that's really what I would prepare for. You know, I spent about 10 months on my Ninja 300 before I really kind of felt bored with it. But those 10 months, the $1,000 that I lost on depreciation of that motorcycle was $1,000 well spent, because that bike really ushered me very well into motorcycles, and it made me confident and inspired me to ride. So you're not so much losing money out of these deals when you flip a bike after a year or two. You're paying for a good experience, right? So what I would totally suggest that you do is that you think about a bike in terms of, will this bike last me a year or two and provide me with learning experiences? Because I'll be honest with you, I think my Ninja 300 probably could have taught me more, and I probably should have stayed on it a little bit longer than I did. But you know, new shiny objects, that's all it is. That's all it comes down to, new shiny objects. You want to talk about user friendliness and price. One thing that you can look up is a particular bike that you're thinking about, and look up its resale value. If you're gonna buy, let's say a 2013 Ninja 300, like my first bike was a 2013 Ninja 300, look up its resale value. You know, my bike was basically new when I bought it. The 300 was a new model year, I think, at that time. And honestly, I couldn't do that. But I probably could have looked at 250 resale values versus new and see what they depreciate at. And then you can make a better decision. Like if there's 2 or 3 beginner bikes that you're looking at, and one resells better, and you know you're probably going to outgrow it in a year or two, maybe get the one that resells better. Another thing to think about when you're talking about new versus used bikes and everything is that a used bike is going to most likely have less technology than a new one. It seems like almost every bike now comes with a slipper clutch and ABS standard, you know, especially the beginner bikes and stuff. Like, you're probably going to have to up-pay a little bit. The last time I was at the shop buying a bike with my girlfriend, basically they had like all these Ninja 300s and they all had ABS besides like 1 or 2. And it was like, basically they're making that standard for beginners, which is a great thing. So the newer bikes are going to come with more beginner-friendly electronics, more electronic rider aids to help you be successful on your new bike, whatever you decide to purchase. So we've talked about all the factors that you should be thinking about when buying your first bike. Let's talk about some bikes that are good for beginners. So I've talked about experience a lot when you're talking about a beginner bike or motorcycling, or can I ride a Panigale 959 as my first bike? And it all comes down to your experience. Are you an experienced dirt bike rider? Have you ridden bikes before? Have you not ridden bikes before? Have you taken the MSF course? These are all things you can do to get your experience up, so when you go to street bikes, it might not be an absolutely terrible decision, like this person cutting me off. I was going 43 and now I'm going 30. Thank you so much, Mr. Expensive Mercedes guy that has no patience. Yeah, generally, any riding experience is going to make you more successful when you pick out your first street bike. But what is a good first street bike? I talked about why you shouldn't have a 959 as your first bike, but what makes a good street bike? I've always talked about my first bike, the Ninja 300. I think the Ninja 300 is the epitome of what makes a good first bike. You get ABS, you get a slipper clutch, you get a comfortable bike that's good to put miles on. I mean, it's just, there is so much about the Ninja 300 that was very inspiring. It inspires you to put miles on your motorcycle. So I would say start with something like a Ninja 300. You can start with a Ninja 300. You can go to more of a Ninja 400. You can go to an R3, a KTM 390 if you're a little bit more experienced. And this is if like this is your very, very first bike. Like you've never owned a street bike before and you have limited experience. To be honest with you, those are really good choices for a very first street bike. And they come out with more every day, and I might not have mentioned them all. Like the Honda 300. There's a Honda 300, and Honda's got a couple different options of 300 trim. I believe you can get a sport bike, or you can get more of a Street Fighter naked bike, a more standard bike. You can also get 650s. They make a lot of 650 class bikes. And you're probably saying Paramoto, you're saying don't get a 600. Well, there's a difference between a 600 and a 650. A 600 is tuned to be a racing machine. A 650 is tuned to be more of a daily driver kind of motorcycle. So if you have some dirt bike experience, or you have a little bit of experience in general, maybe a 650 is a good choice for you. So yeah, SV 650, Ninja 650. I think Honda makes a 650. But anyway, so a 650 is a great choice for people just getting started. Have you guys thought about dual sports? A dual sport's probably a perfect bike to start on, like a Supermoto. So these are all really good choices. These are all good choices that you can make if you feel like motorcycling is right for you. So to recap, basically, it's all about user friendliness and cost effectiveness. All right, that's basically 100% of what motorcycling is about. User friendliness, cost effectiveness. You get a good motorcycle for a decent price. A motorcycle that you can grow out of, but then flip it the next year and put towards a new bike. You can get, you know, a 300, a 400, or a 650 would probably be my 3 top choices for bikes starting out. A 300 or a 400 probably being the top if you don't have experience. A 650 being the top if you do have experience. So that's Paramoto's guide to picking up your first bike. I wish somebody would have told me some of these things when I started, but you live and learn, right? And I'm happy to be part of the experience here. So anyway, guys, thank you for following me along again today on this beautiful day. It's 60 degrees in February, no complaints here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.